What's up, everybody? It's Frederick Douglass Bussey. Today, we're going to talk about why there is one thing you can do, or what the one thing you can do to ensure that your business is always growing when it comes to revenue, the lifeblood, cash flow, the lifeblood of your business. Let's go to work. Whenever I talk to entrepreneurs, one of the key things that I hear coming up over and over again is they're saying, it's not all about the money. Money isn't everything. And there is this sense that we have sometimes that focusing on making the money in your business makes you greedy. And yet, one of the things that's kind of sneaky about owning a business is that you're kind of always thinking about the money until you're not, right? And because the money is the scoreboard that helps you know if you're actually improving, growing. And that money can be whether it's more is coming in or less is going out, right? If you're lowering your expenses, you're making more, whatever that bottom line is, that's important. That number is an important number. You've got to know what it is. Now, here's the problem for most businesses. And we're talking about the 98, 97% of businesses that are out there that are doing less than $1 million a year. Then many are doing less than $100,000 a year, right? And the problem plagues them whether they are a business that's doing $5,000 a month, or they're doing $50,000 a month, or you're doing more than that. And the key is, how do we always make sure that we're getting more and more revenue in the door and spending less and less of it out, right? And so there are some certain factors that are often missing in our businesses. And when you come break it all down, it really comes down to something that is uh, it's something that we talk about in our with our clients about how we can create this flow of predictable revenue, right? And the key word is predictable. How do we make it predictable? So there is a framework that we use when we're talking about growing our business to be able to continue it to grow and gain momentum. And momentum is the key, because what we want to do is just like when you're riding a bike, right? You got to start pedaling that thing and pedaling. And the point is that if you're going to get from point A to point B, you've got to gain some momentum. You've got to get some speed. And so at first, it's hard. Pumping the pedals are hard. And then eventually, as you gain speed, it gets easier and easier to pedal. And every rotation of the pedals and the rotation of the tires helps you to be able to pick that thing up. Now, if you're going uphill, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. When you're going downhill, you can coast. But how is it that you can be able to basically create a steady pace of momentum? And that's what we really want to generate. We want to make sure we can move as fast as possible for as long as possible, as consistently as possible. And one of the biggest challenges that most entrepreneurs face is that when they are doing revenue, revenue tends to look like this. So it's going up and down. More predictably, what happens is when people start a business and as they're growing, revenue can look more like this, right? And so you have some months where you do really, really well, and other months when you don't do anything, right? And so what we want to do is we want to be able to create a steady flow that's steadily doing what? Going in this direction, increasing. The reason why you want to do that is because, and I'll use an example of the stock market. If you ever have followed the stock market, or just look at any graph of the stock market over any particular time, over the last 50 so years, right? You will notice that if there is a stock that does something like this, right? And they spike. In other words, they've been going at a low level rate of growth, and all of a sudden they go almost straight up in the air. Typically, they're going to crash back down. We often think about stocks and stuff in terms of just the money that is being made, but stocks represent real companies. And real companies, when they have huge spikes in growth, there is one underlying factor that most people don't look at. Everybody loves it when they're making the money, but the reason why they come back down is because if you don't understand how to make your business grow steadily, chances are that if it grows with a huge spike, one particular month, one particular event, or whatever the case may be, it's going to crash because you don't know how to sustain it. You probably don't know how it started in the first place, right? So it may have been a random event, something that was out of your control. And a lot of times we are so focused on the things that we want to control, right? We're so focused on gaining control, we don't understand why we don't have control over the things that we really want in our business, right? And so you want to be able to understand, how do I make this thing go the way that I want it to go when I want it to go there, right? If I want to be able to turn on sales, if I want to be able to turn on revenue, how do I do that? And a lot of people aren't really thinking about that because they're so focused on, well, I just get one more client or the bare minimum, whatever the case may be. In fact, a lot of entrepreneurs run their businesses based on the expenses and not on their goals, because the expenses are the things that take up all their attention, right? And so if your expenses spike, it goes above and beyond your revenue. Now you're in panic mode. But it's because you're not being able to focus on the things that allow you to be able to grow the most predictably. So when we are talking with our clients, this is the model that we use, right? DRIP. DRIP stands for decisive, repetitive, intentional, and predictable. All right. Today, all these things are important in the DRIP model, but what we want to focus on today is the predictable part. Because the predictable part is the part that is it's the part that's the least volatile, right? So when you're talking about certain stocks or you're talking about crypto, one of the things that you'll notice with more conservative investors is that they talk about the fact that crypto is so volatile. And it just means that it's unpredictable, right? It goes up and down. And it's unpredictable for a couple of reasons. One is because it's newer. So there's less of a case study. There's fewer years of history to be able to predict what it's going to be able to do. Now, the thing that you can predict is human nature. And so there are certain ways that you can react if you know how to read things and read the markets. You can understand, if I'm reading human behavior, it's going to translate into the markets. But again, understand that markets exist based on companies, and companies are run by people. And so if you have a business that has poor business practices, or a leader or leaders that have a very poor way of thinking about business, maybe they know how to make a lot of money quickly, but they don't know how to run a company sustainably. And so that's one of the things that we pour into this model, to be able to understand, how can we predictably create revenue over time. And there's two questions before we get ready to close that we need to make sure that we're asking, right? And the first of these questions is, what has to go right every single time, right? What is the one thing that when I'm doing my business, if I'm focused on that thing, it has to go right? If this thing goes right, everything else doesn't even matter, right? Or if it doesn't matter, it affects everything a lot less. So what can I focus on to make sure that I'm doing this thing right every single time? So for instance, if you're driving your car, right? The thing about it is, you want to make sure that you keep your steering wheel in the lane. As long as I'm keeping in the lane, there's a lot less likelihood that things are going to go wrong, right? And if I keep my foot on the gas and it's right next to the brake, and I know I can brake at any particular time, I know that as long as I don't hit anything, and as long as I'm staying in the lane, I'm in good shape. Now, if I'm veering all over the side of the road, the chances that something's going to happen greatly increase, right? So I want to make sure, what's the narrow parameter? How do I make sure that I have these guardrails in place so I'm not, the lines on the road that let me know I'm in good shape. I'm not going to crash into somebody else. And so if anything abnormal comes up, there's an obstacle in my lane, that's the only thing I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about tractor trailers coming by on the other side, or people passing me and bumping into me because I'm swerving back and forth in the lanes. I know where I'm at. And so that's one of the things that we get to do as entrepreneurs and business owners is make sure we understand what is the one thing that has to go right. And the second question that we want to ask is one that I got from Keith Cunningham. If you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he is the one who was actually the rich dad that Robert Kiyosaki talks about, right? And one of the principles that I heard him talk about many years ago that really stuck in my mind was that a lot of people are really focused on the upside. And when they're starting a business, especially, they're so excited about the goal and how much money they can make, all the potential that lies out there. And what they don't think about, what they fail to think about is the downside, right? And so, what is the worst case scenario? And here's the thing, how do I prevent the worst case scenario from happening? So, so if I know what the worst case scenario is, I am focused on making sure that thing doesn't happen. So again, using the car analogy, as long as I don't drive into the ditch and I don't hit anybody, that's the worst case scenario, right? So we're not thinking about things blowing up or exploding. We're not thinking about whether the car is going to break down. All those things are possible. But the worst case scenario, if I'm driving around a curve on a mountain, I want to make sure that the mountain, that I don't go off the side of the cliff, right? That's the worst case scenario. Hey, sweetheart. I'm doing a video talking to people about the worst case scenario. Can you do it? You're supposed to be doing schoolwork. My daughter is here. This is the CEO and CFO of the company, and so she's breaking down. But I want to know in the comments below. Let me know. Come here. You can come say hi to everybody. I want to know in the comments below if this is resonating for you. What are the answers for these two questions for you? What are the things? What's the one thing that has to go right? What's the one thing that has to go right? And what's the worst case scenario in your business? How do you make sure that everything is going the way that it needs to go, right? What are you focused on? How can you make your business more predictable? How can you focus on making the drip method, the framework work for you to be able to ensure that your business is at a steady pace? And it's not doing the ecogram like your heartbeat where you're having a regular heartbeat, but it's at a steady climb, steadily increasing over time. All right. If you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn, drop a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Drop a hashtag replay if you're watching this after it's live. If you are watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, or share with somebody that you know that might be valuable for them as well. These are some questions that we're always asking. If you have a question yourself, feel free to shoot a comment or send me a message and let me know how we might be able to help you. Feel free to reach out to book a call and let's dive in a little bit deeper and see what might be missing or what you could be doing even better to continue to grow and scale your business at the pace you want to be able to do it. Hopefully it's been valuable for you. It's been another whiteboard session. Today we've been talking about how to make sure you can make more money, make it a predictable output in your business each and every time. All right. I'm Frederick Douglass Bussey. This is the CEO, Alea. Ever forward.